Hello everyone, welcome to East Asia Political Economy class. I know I actually you didn't miss anything, but I missed two classes. The first class, let me see, first class was September 12th, so I missed the class. And today I want to cover September 12th colonialism. And then I also missed the fourth week fourth, that's September 26th, and I want to cover that too. So I want to talk about today colonialism. I want to finish colonialism. So last week. So that was, I guess, September 19th. We have actually met and we had a class. And then in the class, we talked about colonialism and we cover Arthur Coley and we try to criticize what Arthur Coley's argument. And then today, I want to finish colonialism 2, that is by Haggard et al. Argument. And we didn't really discuss, we didn't have enough time to discuss what's the critics of Arthur Coley, but we don't really have to because Haggard et al. Actually counter argue back to Arthur Coley. So we'll talk about that. And then, not this video, but next video we'll cover week 4. That is how Korea has developed it. So I assign Levi Fau, David, and Ivan Peters. I don't really care which article you prefer and read, but I'll give you detailed information how Korea has been developed over time. And then we will talk about next week. We'll talk about David Kang crony capitalism. We'll talk about that. And probably we will have a class on October 10th. I thought we missed too many classes because of me, not because of you. And then national holiday, October 3rd is national holiday. So we will cover that on makeup week class. So we will have a makeup week class that will be December 12th. So December 12th, we will have a makeup class on for the October 3rd. So technically saying, even though we didn't do offline, if I upload this video, no class is missing. I didn't miss any class. So anyway, let's talk about colonialism. And then I didn't actually give the idea why I wanted to cover colonialism. It's because we have achieved that South Korea and China also same. We have achieved a lot high rate of economic growth, but not like Japan is maybe the only colonizing country that the colonized country has been developed economically. So the Japan saying that Japan argues that because of thanks to colonialization by Japanese government, these countries like Japan, the China, South Korea, Taiwan could develop economically. So I mean, if we understand how Korea has developed over time, we have very strong connection between Japan and South Korea. We have heavily dependent on Japan, and it's because I mean there are a lot of explanations. So maybe some scholars argue that it's because of Korean War. During the Korean War, we import a lot of product from Japan. Well, some people argue that it's because of this colonization thing going on. Or third, we were a country called catch-up country. So we are not a first mover, but we actually catch up. So that's the kind of strategy that Korea has adopted. And then Japan advanced first, so we actually catch up the Japanese kind of model. So that's why we heavily depend on Japan. But the heavily dependent doesn't really necessarily mean that we cannot develop without Japan, but that means we import a lot of things from Japan. That's what I'm saying. But anyway, so that's why I wanted to start with this colonialism first. Let me. Last time we talked about like Arthur Coley's, we dissect Arthur Coley's argument. So Arthur Coley is talking about like how bad Korean E dynasty was. So I mean, I talked about a little bit on like history, but we'll continuously talk about that. But East State is a very old state of Korea, and then East State was definitely divided into like based on caste system. So we have a very clear hierarchy. So we have the slave, we have a middle class, we have Yangban, elite class, ruling class, and then there was power struggle between the Yi dynasty and Yangban, and then the dynasty has no power whatsoever. That means Yangban doesn't have to pay taxes at the time. So the state only resorted to its money from only the farming class. So not a Yangban class. Yangban has a lot of money, but Yangban didn't pay anything. So that's actually double torture for the farmers because farmers have to pay a lot of taxes. And then another thing, I mean, the article that's why describe Yi dynasty as a predatory, so seeking to exploit or oppress others. That's the characteristics of Yi dynasty. But because of Japanese colonization, the first thing they did, I mean, they did a lot of different things that they describe. I mean, article describe what Japanese government did. But first of all, they get rid of all this caste system. There is no yangban, there is no slave, there is whatsoever among classes. So the one thing that Japan did really well is to get rid of this kind of hierarchical system, caste system. So it's gone. And then the Japan also talk about like article talk about new civil service. So Korea, as I described, when we developed, it developed based on technocrats. And then technocrats are well trained, smart, and these people actually lead to and come up with very effective industrial policies. And then where these industrial policies come from, they say it's because of this Japanese uh, legacy. So there was Japan started to build this new civil services, right? So civil services has been increased, and then the police force. It talks about police force, and then education. So we have very similar educational system to Japan, and health and public welfare, tax collection, and they talk about also the state capacity to collect taxes based on this land reform. Though they talk about like this one, so they boost agricultural production. That's right. So we have, but before Japan, Korea has a lot of problems in terms of productivity in rice, but because of thanks to Japan, I mean the increase in rice production from 1910 to 1924 is 1.5%, and they built this railways, post office, coal mines, timber has been developed. Not only that, but also there were a lot of Japanese farms, food processing industries, exchanging manufacturing goods. So there were 230 factories, and then the Koreans were 50 or 49 Koreans owned. So I mean Koreans the portion of Koreans owns were very small, but still it says that it remains. That's actually the legacy because the 50 Koreans, but number is small, but they will learn how to manage. So they give this know-how to Korean. That's what they argue. So that's what we actually have learned last week, not last week, but 19th. And today I wanted to introduce Haggard article. I'm not sure you have a chance to read the Haggard article. That's Japanese colonialism and Korean development critique. So it actually shows one by one what's the problem of auto equality. I really like the article. And if you let me start the autoequality's argument. I mean, it's quite long article, but I would strongly recommend to read it because first of all, I didn't assign. I mean, if you read it, then hold on. I want to start. Oh, okay, this one. So, colonialism too. So, if you read this article, it gives a lot of evidence that showing that what Articoli argue is completely wrong. So it doesn't just show, it doesn't just give argue, or it doesn't just counter argue, but they provide evidence to support the argument. That's why I really liked it. And then the thing is, if you look at the article, then the main author is Stephen Haggard. He is a very famous scholar in Korean politics, Asian politics. I'm not sure he's still working. I think he retired. He was quite old. But he provided a lot of articles that help to understand the Korean politics. But anyway, uh, and then second one is David Gang. We will lead David Gang next week. And then 연세 University, Professor Moon. So three of us provide this article. I really liked it. Let's read one by one. I mean, we don't. I'm not gonna read it, but let's dissect this article. So, according to Article, he talks about like what Article argues. So Japan transformed a relatively corrupt and ineffective traditional state into a modern, developmental one, and capable of simultaneously controlling and transforming Korean society. That's Article argument, right? I mean, they kind of partially agree. They saying like E dynasty wasn't very effective, and then as Article argue, it was very corrupted. And then the Japanese established a pattern of business government relations that facilitated industrial both through its influence on the transformation of the Korean private sector and as a development model. I mean, that's what Arthur Coley wanted to argue. So, I mean, we'll talk about the next video. I'll talk about like the patterns, the power configuration between business, government, and labor. I mean, this article doesn't really mention about labor because quite a long time labor was oppressed. I mean, while the South Korea has economically developed it during Park Chung-hee, I mean, we will learn Park Chung-hee and Chun Doo-hwan's government, um, the labors were completely gone. So the power configurations, I mean, we usually, when we talk about power configuration among business, government, labor, we usually focus on business and government, not labor much. So at first, Korean development state, government has much more power, and then business has less power. Of course, we will learn David Gang's argument that David Gang doesn't really agree on this. So Gang thinks that the business and government has very similar power configuration. But anyway, this pattern of business and government relations. So Gabon has much more power, businesses less power. Their patterns could established by Japan. That's what it's talking about. And then it also have influence on the private sector and development model. So development developmental model. Well, I'll explain later on in detail. Developmental state model means state became works or state became a tool for economic development. So state focus on, I mean, state should provide a lot of different things, a lot of public goods, but usually this development state, China is same, they rather focus on economic development rather than anything else. And then where this model come from? According to article correlates from colonialization. So it article we talk about like services, civil services, power of civil services, or the police system. These things uh, could contribute for formation of this development model state. Development state model. A colonial bureaucracy effected a fundamental transformation of social relations that create the framework for evolution of high growth political economy. That's article's argument. But this article wanted to talk about, they wanted to see, first of all, economic growth. So if you look at the page 868, the economy report, so it provides source of 1978, as you can see here. If you look at agriculture, fishery, mining, and manufacturing, so this distribution of net commodity product by industrial origin percent based on 1936 prices. So agriculture depression of 1920. So if you look at here, let's look at the table first. From 1910 to 1915, it was 95.2%. And then mining 1.3, manufacturing 3.5, 1916 to 21, 93.1, and mining 1.4, and manufacturing 5.5. And then it has been decreased in agriculture and fishery, but mining has been increased and the manufacturing has significantly increased. And then the article Coley wanted to point it out that what really means is that